welcome to week 3, element 1, how to capture and keep attention. So we've spent the last 2 weeks talking about content, and now it's time to finally get down to work creating some. Now there are various ways to create content, and each one of you watching will find you good in some areas and not so good in others. Maybe you shine in front of the camera and you can think fast on your feet when discussing a topic, or maybe you're great at writing and you can knock out a quality piece of written content in a short time frame. Or maybe you're very good with images, photos, graphics, etc. Or you could be good at audio. Or if you remember back to the market research stage, element 3, we talked about finding partners to work with, people to create content for you. So if you're terrible at all the other options that I discussed, here's your opportunity to shine by leveraging third-party resources. Now at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter where your strengths lie. It just matters that you play to your strengths, because that's what's going to get you the quickest results when it comes to content creation. Now, I'm going to talk a lot about my recommended way of creating content moving forward, but I just want to say here and now that if my way truly doesn't work for you, then use the way that suits your personality, your strengths, and even the time you have available. Just get that content created and out there, because it's a vital component to your success at becoming an authority agent. So let's take a look at element 1 of content creation now, which is how to capture and keep attention. So this is all about how to create content that other people find genuinely useful, helpful, even valuable. Now this is not about being an award-winning writer or a filmmaker who produces works of exquisite polish and delight. It's about being helpful and useful, and every single one of you already knows how to do this. If you've ever answered a question that a prospective client has asked you, that's being helpful and useful. If you've ever given a recommendation to a prospective client based on your knowledge and expertise of a topic, then you've been helpful and useful. So we're just going to take your already proven ability to be helpful and useful and turn it into content that prospects and clients can consume. Now whether it's in the form of text, a blog post for example, or a video on YouTube, or an infographic, or even a tweet or an Instagram photo, if it's helpful and useful to someone, it's achieved one of its major goals. So in order to produce content that captures and keeps attention, we're going to talk about the 3 E's. And the 3 E's are educate, entertain, and enhance. So if you produce content keeping the 3 E's in mind, it'll go a long way towards achieving your goal of becoming an authority agent, and then it's down to you to turn that authority and attention into sales. So the number 1 key to content creation for an authority agent is educate. Look, honestly, if you've read Utility for Real Estate, I'm probably just relaboring the point that you've got by now. But, just in case, if you haven't, go back and read it. But when people are thinking of buying or selling a home, or they're looking for a rental, they've all got questions. You'll remember from our market research stage that there are a lot of questions that people want the answers to. And whether it's finding out how to find out the current market value of their home, or how to choose wisely when buying an investment property, or any number of literally thousands of questions, people want answers to those questions. As my old mate Gary Vaynerchuk says, you ask questions and I answer them. So that's why you're educating, to answer people's questions. And if your future clients go to Google to search for answers to their real estate related questions, then you need to be the one that answers their questions. After all, think about it, how you feel when someone answers an important question you have, particularly if it's a big purchasing question. When they take away the confusion and uncertainty you felt until they give you the answer they were looking for, how do you feel? If you felt relief, gratitude, appreciation, even trust in them for helping you, then that's the exact same thing you're looking to achieve when you educate people who are seeking the answers that you have. It creates trust, and trust is the biggest ally you have as a sales professional. If people trust you, selling is literally 5 to 10 times, maybe even 100 times easier than if they don't trust you. And so hopefully by now you understand why education is such an important part of creating authority, because it builds trust and high profile. Now as for the second E, entertain, that's not about being a born entertainer or a hilarious comedian or someone who can hold a room full of people spellbound with their charisma, personality and intelligence. Rather, it's just a reminder to not be too facts and figures boring when creating your content. Now a big lesson I learned many years ago was to write the way I speak, rather than to write in officious, straitjacket-like business language. Most people just want to communicate with their family, friends and customers in a natural and easy way, not too highfalutin, pompous or stilted. So being entertaining in your content is really just about remembering to relax a little, occasionally have fun and speak normally and naturally. And if people find your content easy to consume, even enjoyable, then they'll consume more of it, and more importantly perhaps, they'll share it with others as well, which is obviously valuable for you. If, on the other hand, they read your blog post or watch your video and feel like they're consuming something written by a lawyer or some highbrow rocket scientist, chances are pretty good they'll switch off and move on. So I guess what I'm really trying to say, again, is chill out and relax a bit when creating your content. Don't be afraid to make the odd joke. Keep it clean. Tell a personal story as it relates to the circumstances of the topic, and show some empathy with the audience. Being corporate stiff and boring is probably the worst thing you can do to entertain people, so just don't do it. And lastly, the third E, enhance, is all about enhancing their lives. If your content gets them one step closer to their goals and dreams, you've added value to their lives. They need to know that you understand them, their fears, their concerns and their dreams. And the easiest way to get that across is to put yourself in their shoes when creating content. What do they want and need to know in order to make a wise decision? Can you share your very best quality information and knowledge with them and add value to their life? If you can do this without making it boring and uninteresting, you're 3/4 of the way towards succeeding and becoming an authority. Now, of course, you still likely want some guidance around how to create content that captures and keeps attention. So I'm going to share a few key tips from the most excellent Sean D'Souza of psychotactics.com. So in Sean's book Outlining, How to Speed Up Article Writing with Simple Outlines, which I highly recommend you get a copy of, he talks about the power of using outlines to speed up the process of, in his case, writing articles, but in your case it'll be about creating content, whether it's written, audio, video or images. And when it comes down to it, you've almost certainly heard of the key concept to this. Content is about answering the why, what, when, where, which and how of the subject. Now Sean describes this as if a highly curious 5-year-old sat down with you and asked all those questions about your topic. You know, you ever had a 5-year-old say, but why, but how, all that kind of stuff. And when you answer those questions, it forms the core of your article, your story, your video, your breaking news, etc. From there, all it's missing is to add an opening, an ending, and a summary, and you've got content that can fulfill on the 3 E's. Now, you might not have realized this before, but when you watch the news on TV, they follow the same model. They have an opening, they answer the why, what, when, where, and how, where appropriate, and then finish with an ending and a summary. The same goes to most documentaries and books, and even fictional movies and TV show plots and scripts. Speaking of scripts, a lot of this is also mirrored in the script writing world, whether for TV or movie. They follow a formula that works, and if you actually dig below the surface and study the subject, you might be surprised to find how consistent the formula is, even though the movie is about totally different people and different subjects. In fact, there's heaps of books for sale on Amazon.com just around the topic of writing scripts, stories, books, even how to create winning legal arguments, and they all follow a formula that's almost exactly as I've just discussed. So what I recommend when it comes to you creating your content is to spend a few minutes beforehand with a pen and paper, and that's important. You need to have the ye old pen and paper, sit down away from the distraction, because it allows you to focus. Turn your phone off or get away from your computer. And ask yourself the above one-word questions about the topic. Jot them down as bullet points if you like. Make a few notes after each one, even if it's just one short sentence or a few words that relate to the subject. This way you'll be much clearer about what you need to include in your content piece because you've created a short outline before you get started. Now, I've created a heap of content over the last 10 to 15 years. Literally hundreds of thousands, possibly even 1 million plus words worth of articles, videos, audios and reports, etc. And to this day, I still find it helpful to create a short written outline to get myself started and keep myself on track. You've probably already realised the Authority Agent Academy is not something I just plucked out of thin air and turned it into a video. It's highly structured, scripted and pre-planned before I push the record button. So whenever, and I found this, whenever I try to wing it, I invariably go off on a tangent and start waffling and lose my place, which bores people quickly. And most of you are probably going to be exactly the same as me, so don't stress about it seeming impossible right now. It's just a case of following some guidelines that work, and you'll be pumping out good content quickly and easily in time. Now, just a quick note about the W's, I call them, all the W's and the H. You don't need to include all of them. Sometimes you might only include 2 or 3, and other times you can and should use all of them. You could even use just one of them multiple times in the same content piece. Now, to get started with your outline, the one question to usually start with is going to be what. And the reason for this is that what brings all your readers or listeners together on the same page in an instant, and it helps everyone stay focused and understand, quote unquote, what you're talking about. Now, I will add there are occasions when it's not the best place to start your outline, but in a lot of times it's the best choice. So let's work up an example. So let's start by choosing a subject or a topic we're going to create content about. And let's say it's selling your house for maximum profits. We're going to add in a subtopic, which is using staging to improve the saleability of your house. And then we start with the what that most, if not all, homeowners want to know, and that is, what causes a home to sell for maximum profits? And from there we can ask the other questions, the W's and the H questions. When's the best time to get started on achieving your goal? Where does this work? Why does it work? How do you maximize the selling price that you can sell your home for? And with each of these short outline questions, I suspect that all of you could come up with answers to each question. And with a little bit of tweaking, you could easily turn this into a good article or a YouTube video about using staging to maximize the sale price of your home. Now, just a reminder again, as I mentioned before, you don't have to use all of these questions. But, if you've got the whole list of them there, it gives you some variety and some options. You might just prefer to use how 3 or 4 times with a why thrown in for good measure, or which plus 2 hows. And don't get locked in and be so rigid that you try to force the piece into something that looks and sounds weird. Instead, go for what feels natural. Oh, and before I forget, I highly recommend you pre-plan your article in writing before starting, which I said earlier. It's also worth clarifying that this applies whether you're writing a blog post or coming up with an outline for a YouTube video, or even a report you're going to create for people to download in PDF format off your website. Now, some of you will be great talking on video without too many notes or a complicated outline, but others will be more like me where you almost have to script the entire video in full word for word. With practice, you get better at that. I find I produce better quality videos when I script them out, but for the occasional 60 to 90 second video, I can usually ad-lib. So I want to show you an example of an ad-lib style video I created without having to script it. So, okay, let's hope the video plays properly.
So if you're looking for fantastic fish and chips in Innaloo, get on down to Brighton Fish and Chips or Brighton Fish Supply on Muriel Avenue. Everyone raves about how good their fish and chips are. There's a line out the door almost most nights. We're open from 4:30 till 8:30 p.m. 7 days a week, and you can actually ring in and they'll have the order pre-made for you. I'm not personally a big fish and chips fan, but my partner is, and she reckons they're one of the best. So definitely come on down and check them out.
Okay, so you will have seen that it was a pretty simple video. It's not going to win any awards, but the idea behind that video is simply to show you how easy it is to put together something ad-lib. That was me talking for at best 30 seconds about a local fish and chip shop. You might think, why on earth am I doing this? You'll understand more as we move on in this week. But the key to understand is that you can ad-lib in some cases when you know the topic really well and you're comfortable. But in most cases, what I recommend you do is to follow Sean D'Souza's outlining technique. come up with the who, what, where, when, how, why, that kind of stuff. Jot a few notes down on paper before you get started. Aim to keep your videos short. 2 minutes is probably about the most you'd want to do under normal circumstances. Now, it's not to say a 5 or a 10 minute video might not be valuable or worthwhile in some cases, but in most cases keep it under 2 minutes. Most of my little short videos like this are sort of in the range of 30 to 90 seconds, thereabouts. So start thinking about you've done the keyword research last week, so now start thinking about, okay, let's go through, let's prioritize my keywords, let's write some outlines for them, and which ones I'm going to start recording first. Is it going to be, I've got another one you'll probably see later on when I record, the same day I recorded this one, another one about apartments for sale in Innaloo, because there's a real estate office next door to where I live. And that was designed purely as a piece of content that's going to be searched for in Google. It's already #1 in YouTube, which in like 1 week, which is pretty cool. So, as I talked to you about before, getting this local content created quickly is a really powerful way to take over the local market as far as the internet goes. So, off you go. Now, you'll notice I've included one of Sean's podcast videos on the page. I'll show you in the next little video, and that talks a bit more about outlining in a bit more depth. If you want more details, check his book out as well, and the link for that is below the video. Okay, that is it for element 1, how to capture and keep attention. So we are going to move on now to element 2, make it Google friendly.